Okay, well, hello everyone. My name is Megan Carter and I'm the Community Director of ESIP. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar in the Earth Science Information Partners Data to Work webinar series, which follows ESIP's 2020 year theme of putting data to work, building public-private partnerships to increase resilience and enhance the socioeconomic value of data. This webinar series moves beyond data discovery to explore how the Earth Science community is putting data to work, using and reusing data in new and creative applications, creating derived products, and showcasing examples of data integration in order to enhance the resilience and enhance the socioeconomic value of data. In addition, playing on the double meaning of work, the series highlights public-private partnerships as we explore how data usage increases the value of Earth Science research to other economic sectors. Today, we're very excited to welcome Sophie Howe, who will be speaking about how usability techniques can help your scientific community, support your scientific community. Before we move to Sophie's presentation, which I'm sure is why you all are here, I'd like to give just a couple of brief slides in case you're not familiar with ESIP. So for more than 20 years, ESIP has helped members of the earth science data community find each other across traditional boundaries and work together. ESIP is funded by NASA, NOAA, and the US Geological Survey, and currently has more than 150 partner organizations spanning the federal, private, and academic sectors, as well as many more individual participants. ESIP supports earth science data professionals by fostering rich collaborative experiences, including numerous community-driven virtual collaborations that I'll tell you about in a moment, through the ESIP Lab, which supports the development of innovative applied earth science technologies, and through 2 annual conferences. These ESIP meetings are highly interactive and collaborative, and the next one is actually coming up in less than 3 weeks. It'll be online, and we encourage you to visit the meeting website to learn more about the 50+ community contributed breakout sessions, the 6 plenary sessions, including Australia-friendly times, the Funding Friday mini grant competition, and the research showcase, which will include both virtual posters and demos along with live Q&A. Outside of the 2 major meetings I just described, ESIP collaboration areas meet regularly to address pressing and emerging data-related challenges and opportunities for the benefit of science and society. These groups typically host monthly webinars with activities ranging from open discussion on key topics to webinar series, to outputs like guidance documents and in-person sessions, of course, at the ESIP meetings or elsewhere, in-person or virtual sessions at ESIP meetings, I should say. You can check out the ESIP Telecon calendar to see when these groups are meeting, and feel free to join in at any time. There is no RSVP necessary. Our speaker today actually was a co-chair of the ESIP Usability Collaboration Area in the past. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker today, Sophie Howe. Sophie is a data and usability analyst currently working with the USGS Science Data Management, Science Analytics and Synthesis, and the Western Geographic Science Center. Sophie is interested in designing and implementing best practices for scientific data, especially in the areas of user interface, user experience, and trusted infrastructure. She is also interested in developing data management and usability training materials in order to meet the growing data workforce needs. Sophie has a Master of Science degree in Library and Information Science with a specialization in data curation from the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. Sophie also has additional degrees and professional work experience in the field of electrical engineering. So I will now pass the ball to Sophie and she can take it away. And as I'm doing that, I just want to remind you all that we will have an opportunity for questions at the end. But if you have any questions along the way, I encourage you to pop them into the chat box.
Great, thank you so much, Megan. And hello, everybody. I hope you are able to see the slide okay. Should be my introduction slide. So I am Sophie Howe, as Megan said. I am a data and usability analyst currently at Apogee Engineering, but I'm also a contractor to the US Geological Survey, or USGS. I'm really glad that you can make time to be with me today at the seminar. I hope you all have been able to stay safe and well, but I'm definitely excited to share this topic with you because I'm very passionate about it, and hopefully throughout the presentation you'll be able to feel that energy. So today I like to share with you how usability techniques can support our scientific communities. During the presentation, we will go over 3 different areas. First, we will take a quick overview of the USGS Community for Data Integration, or CDI, and the Usability Collaboration Area that I am currently leading. Then I will share with you a few use cases where I've actually applied some of these usability techniques that I have been discussing with my community members, and then I have worked on applying these techniques to my own USGS projects. Also, as Megan has mentioned, during 2016 and 2018, I actually co-led ESIP's own usability cluster. Even though the cluster is currently on hiatus, I have learned a lot from ESIP, and through my projects, I am now applying the experience and the lessons learned to the Usability Collaboration Area at CDI. So I hope I will be able to share these lessons with you, and that you will be able to leverage them and see if you can adapt or apply them to your own communities. Finally, as Megan also has mentioned, I would love your feedback. If you have any questions, I will welcome your discussions at the end. Before I get started though, it's really important for me that I recognize my USGS teams. These are the 3 teams that I have been collaborating with. I am very grateful that they have given me the opportunities to integrate usability techniques with their projects so that we can see how these usability techniques can really work out in a scientific environment. I definitely hope you will also appreciate and benefit from the effort. And also, before I get into the actual presentation, I also would like to just take a moment to address why I think this topic is relevant to the putting data to work theme that ESIP is putting together. And to talk about that, I am going to use Steve Krug, who is a web consultant, web usability consultant, and he has a book on Don't Make Me Think, a common sense approach to web usability. And this is a quote from him. As a side, this book is actually really useful, not to be punny, but it's really well written. It has a lot of great examples and a lot of great usability comics. So if this is new to you and you're looking for a way to get started, I'll just mention now that Steve Krug is a great resource, and his book is a great way to start. But getting back to the concept of putting data to work and how usability techniques can do that, Steve has this quote. He says, "What works is good integrated design that fills a need, carefully thought out, well executed, and tested." And for me, every single part of this quote speaks about how usability techniques can help our communities and help putting our data to work. So first, let's take a look at the needs. Usability techniques can really help us identify our communities, what their problems are, how they want to be successful, and how we can be part of that process. And so usability techniques are very valuable to me because I am able to understand my communities and see the world or see how they want to be successful from their perspective. And then there's the integrated solution or integrated design part. Once we know what our communities are looking for to be successful or to take on the next step, of course, we are there to help them provide a solution. And oftentimes it will be through our data. But the design is not just from a person's perspective or even from one team. Usability techniques emphasize the collaborative part of the process. We want to take in as many people's perspectives and their strengths and their contributions as possible so that the solutions can be integrated and holistic. And then the last part of this quote, thought out, well executed, and tested. Usability is highly contextual. So in order for us to actually pick the appropriate usability techniques, we actually have to think about the situation. We have to think about the problem statement. We have to think about the need. And so once we have thought through that process and selected the appropriate usability techniques, then we actually have to do it. So that's the well-executed part. And the last part, test it. Steve didn't really highlight this here, but in usability field, the testing part is iterative. So we want to make sure not only we do it once, but we also learn from that experience and keep building on it. So in summary, in terms of usability techniques and how those techniques can help supporting our communities and putting data to work, I think this quote really sums it up in terms of finding a need, looking for the integrated design by picking the appropriate techniques, performing them, and iterating over them. All right, so getting started with the first area then, I mentioned that the first part of the presentation, we will talk about the USGS Community for Data Integration, or CDI, and the new Usability Collaboration Area that I'm leading. If you're not familiar with CDI already, it is actually quite analogous to ESIP in the way that CDI is also a forum or a community that people can come together to share ideas and to learn new skills. CDI is also focusing on understanding of Earth systems, just like ESIP. But for me, participating in USGS CDI and having the usability collaboration area has two additional benefits. One, I've already mentioned that USGS, or rather usability, is highly contextual. So working with the USGS members to understand their data information needs can really help me understand what issues or what environment they're working with, so the usability strategies that we come up with will be appropriate for their projects or for their teams. The CDI community is also open to non-USGS members or non-USGS employees. So we actually have other community members joining us and collaborating with us. And so, as I mentioned earlier in the previous slide, the collaborative nature of usability is very important. Being able to learn from other perspectives is really important. So that's also how I'm benefiting from the CDI community as well. In terms of the CDI usability collaboration area itself, I just started the collaboration area last December, so we're quite young, and we're definitely one of the newer ones, one of the newer collaboration areas within CDI. There are many other collaboration areas that have been in place and have been active for many years, so again, similar to the ESIP community. For me though, for the first year, just to be able to scope the usability discussions, I am focusing on first helping the USGS tools and services be more useful and the service and tool users to be more successful. But what do we mean by that? What do we mean by useful? So again, scoping the conversation, I am using a definition that put together by Jacob Nielsen, another usability guru, in our discussions. So I think it's on your left-hand side, those three thought bubbles. When we are talking about useful, we really are talking about two essential components. We are saying that your tool or your service has to have the features or the functions that your users need to be successful in their goals or in their activities. Once you're able to identify and design the features and functions that are essential to your users, then these features and functions also have to be easy and pleasant to use or usable. So useful really is a result of having the appropriate utility and the utility is usable. And that's when we can call something that's useful. On top of that, in terms of usability discussions, there are two additional concepts that are often involved. And so these are also two areas that we talk about in our discussions. So UX refers to user experience. And then that's basically the element of your tools or your services that your users are interacting with to form the process or to go through the workflow of what they are trying to achieve with your tool or your service. And then UI, or the user interface, will then or in general, we say that that's the style or the presentation format that you're making your elements available to your users. So this is a quick overview of the usability collaboration area. And then as a new collaboration area, I also want to learn my community as much as possible. So we actually have 3 different ways to engage with the community. The first one is a discussion forum. The discussion forum is basically a web page where our members can post questions or issues that they're encountering with their projects or with just things that they would like to learn more about in terms of usability. This is a great way for our community members to get to know each other, to learn from each other, and also equally important, it's a wonderful way for me to see what are the emerging needs of my community, and then I can organize the discussions and presentations accordingly. So the next mechanism or the next method that I'm using to engage with my community is by using town hall meetings. I call these town hall meetings because the meetings actually don't happen every month. Town hall meetings are held during the even months of the year. And it is synchronous. It is 1 hour. So we still get an opportunity to bring the members together, to learn together and discuss topics at the same time. And you can see from the screen some of the discussion topics that we have covered. But from my experience of working with the ESIP community, as well as through my own projects, I learned that usability concepts or discussions can be a little bit difficult for people to digest if they don't have an immediate project or immediate need that they can apply the concepts or techniques to. As I mentioned, again, usability is contextual. So you actually will benefit quite a lot more if you're actually able to do the usability techniques, or you can perform the usability practices. And so I came up with a third way for allowing our community members to benefit from the discussions or from the discussion forum is by providing resource reviews. Resource reviews are basically, I wouldn't call them blogs, because I'm writing them to address specific issues, but they are static wiki pages where I talk about what is the issue that people have posted and what are the potential solutions or potential ideas that the usability communities have provided in relation to that topic. The idea is that this is an asynchronous forum or a process. Anybody can come and read the resources or review the resources at their own pace. And especially as I compile the different resources for this page, we're hoping that this can become sort of like a reference library. So as people experience different parts of their projects and they have different usability issues, they can come back here and look up the different resources that have been reviewed or have been proposed to help them to get started. Okay, so these are the 3 ways that I'm engaging with the usability collaboration area and just how the collaboration area relates to USGS CDI. I'm going to kind of take a quick pause to see if anybody has any urgent questions that you would like to ask. If you don't have any, that's okay too. As Megan mentioned, we will have time at the end as well. But I'm looking at the chat to see if anybody said anything. So not seeing any. Hopefully I'm not cutting anybody off either. I'm going to continue with the use cases. So you will be seeing 5 different use cases in this section. And before we get into the actual section or each one of the use cases, I just want to give you an overview of these different 5 steps. During the next slides, I will actually only be able to talk about one stage of each project at a time. And even though each project, I'm only presenting one of the stages, I want to highlight that I actually did go through all these different 5 stages for all these different use cases. Additionally, I will be presenting these stages in sequential order, but as you can see on the slide, the process is not sequential, it's actually cyclical. And I mentioned about doing things in iteration, and that was definitely the case with my projects. And so, for example, when I'm creating and revising content, I often have to go back to look at the needs and the scope that I have assessed and established to make sure that I'm still on the right track and I'm still in line with the needs and scope that I need to focus on. Similarly, testing for user feedback, that stage itself is iterative. I mentioned that we don't just test it once and forget about it. We actually want to do it multiple times, learn from our process and refine and enhance. But then as we learn about the user feedback, we might have to go back and to fine tune the needs that we originally established, review whether or not the way that we structure the information for our tools or our services still makes sense, and then again, go back to revise or create new content as needed. So I want to make sure that as we go forward, you think about how in your projects you will be able to go through these stages iteratively to make sure your overall projects at the end or your overall solutions at the end will be as useful as possible. All right, so the first use case that I would like to share with you is for the stage assessing needs and establishing scope. And I will be using Sciencebase homepage as the use case. Sciencebase is one of the digital repositories at the USGS, and we have both internal and external users for the system. Sciencebase is already in existence, so it already has a homepage. But for redesigning the homepage, it's still very important for us to examine and understand again who are our users, who are using the Sciencebase system, and what are their goals. And to do this, the technique persona building or just personas, this technique is really good to help us organize the information. A persona basically describes the representative user, a representative user group, or a targeted, or rather a target user segmentation. And when you are describing a persona or you're describing this representative user group, you would generally be researching and documenting a few types of information. So first, you will be looking at what are they trying to achieve? And so what are their goals? And then when they're trying to achieve their goals, what are they doing to achieve those goals? So basically their behavior or their environment. And then how are they feeling when they're doing that? Are they currently frustrated? Are they currently excited? Are they stressed? So basically their attitudes or personality or traits. But of course, really important from this process, we also want to understand really clearly what's working well, what's not working well, so their experience and their pain points. And finally, we want to know why they're doing what they're doing. And so when organizing persona information, there are a lot of different options. In fact, when you Google or when you search for persona templates, you will be offered a lot of different options. And I'm just showing one example on the left-hand side. That's more of a graphical way to represent the persona information. But personas don't always have to be complex like this or organized in such a way. Even as a Word document, it could still be very effective. The important thing here is that we are able to generate characteristics of our representative users so we can communicate with our teams and help our team members empathize with the users and take the user perspective as we develop and design our solutions. During this process too, you might come you might decide that you have more than a handful of personas, like more than 3 to 5 personas, and you might not be able to cater to all the personas at the same time. So prioritization is also really important when thinking about scoping and establishing or assessing needs and establishing scope. Prioritization allows us to actually determine the essential features that we have to focus on. And then from there, we can assess whether or not we have the appropriate resources to actually come up with that first instance of useful products. Of course, when we decide to prioritize certain personas, it does not mean that we're going to forget about the other personas. So prioritization also helps us in coming up with achievable roadmap so that we can actually demonstrate to our stakeholders, our funders or sponsors, how we're going to scale up the solution, how we're going to build on the solution, and if needed, justify why continued investment in our solutions is warranted. Okay, so for science-based, we are I'm showing 3 different prioritized personas on the slide, and just some simplified characteristics of these personas. As you scan through the bullet points, I hope you can see that even from this very simplified version of our personas, you can already start to see how the features or the functions of the homepage will need to balance the different personas needs. For example, we have already personas that need login versus persona that not need login. So how do we make that clear to the personas? Also, for USGS researchers and non-USGS researchers, even though they're both researchers, they're working on different types of information or different types of data. So again, just from a homepage standpoint, how do we make it clear that those who need to work on specific types of data can go one way and the others can go the other way? So these are using the personas perspectives. It will be really helpful for us to guide our design and development process. All right, so once we have assessed needs and established scope, the next part is to look at what information we have, what solutions that we think we have in order to support our users. And for this part, I'm going to use Hazard Exposure Reporting and Analytics, or HERA, as the use case. HERA is a web-based tool that provides interactive maps and graphs to help communities as they plan and prepare for natural hazards. As you listen to the description of HERA, I hope you can envision that there's actually a lot of scientific information or scientific data and modeling behind HERA. And when we are providing this information to our communities, the communities members might not necessarily have the same scientific background as the modelers or our scientists. So it is really important for us to organize the information in such a way that we are still able to convey the scientific content, the soundness of our science, but at the same time convey the information in such a way that's understandable to our users with their own context. So for this part of for this phase, there are many different techniques that might be able to help us in deciding how we want to structure our information. But for HERA, I use the technique comparative analysis. Comparative analysis is basically a technique that allows us to evaluate different interfaces by reviewing their designs. And these interfaces can come from both direct and indirect competitions. When I say indirect, basically it's another tool or another service that's trying to address the same type of question or same type of problem. And they're also trying to support some similar types of users that are user groups that we are also focusing on. Indirect competitions are basically solutions that might go after the same users but try to address different sets of questions, or they could be addressing similar types of questions, but for different users or for different user types. In any case, comparative analysis is just a great way for us to review what other people are doing and reflect on how their solutions compare to our understanding or our vision of how we want to support our users. In the case of HERA, I actually did more than 20 comparative analyses. And as a result of that, I was able to come up with the starting site structure for the tool. And it was a really great way for me to leverage the lessons from the other tools, identify the strengths, deciding whether or not we can adapt those strengths, and then also examine the not so ideal traits, but then learn from those and see how that could impact our context as well. So comparative analysis is a really great way to not have to reinvent wheels, but at the same time, taking the lessons learned and making sure the lessons really fit our own context. All right, so we have assessed the needs, we have established scope, and we have reviewed how we want to structure the information that we want to provide to support our users. Now we're ready to put the content and features together. And the title says creating and revising because not all tools are going to be, or not all tools or solutions will be built from scratch. So if you already have content or features that are working well, it's also great to be able to leverage that and just revise to meet the ongoing needs that you have. And so for this use case, I'm also going to use Sciencebase, but this time, instead of looking at homepage, we'll be looking at the help page. The reason why I'm highlighting the help page is because when people come to the help page, they often have a different attitude or different expectation than when they're looking at the home page. When people are visiting a help page or looking for a help page, usually it's when they have a question that they're trying to answer, or they're a little bit confused and they're trying to clarify the context of the system that they're looking at, or they could just be wanting to look for information that they can connect with the system a little bit more. So for help page, in general, we really need to communicate clearly and concisely so we can help users move on from their questions or from their doubt quickly and easily. And in this case, writing style is definitely really important. We really need to look at our content strategy. We need to look at what categories of information that we're providing to our users. We need to look at what is the language or what is the format that we're presenting that information. In particular, for the help page, for Sciencebase help page, we focused on the concept of writing for the web. A lot of people, when they read the web pages, they have a very different reading pattern than when they read other materials. From a lot of usability studies, we know that when people are reading the web or reading the web pages, they often scan, they look for keywords, they don't read line by line, and they have very short attention span. So knowing that's the typical setting or the trait of our users, we need to make sure our web content can be delivered in such a way that supports that kind of information behavior. And so for the Sciencebase help page, we use a web editor called Hemingway Editor. The editor allows us to quote unquote grade our writing, as well as to get a sense of the reading level that the text will be graded at. The grade might be a little bit quote unquote arbitrary because, as you can see on the left hand side, there's grade 14. So in a US system, we don't technically have a grade 14, but what Hemingway Editor is trying to say is relatively how much harder, the higher the grade level, obviously it's harder to read versus a lower grade level. And so I know you probably won't be able to read the text itself, but I just wanted to show you that we took the original text and we reformatted it and gave it additional text treatment. So not only that each individual sentences are easier to read, but also overall, hopefully you can see from the presentation style as well that it's easier to scan and easier to show breaks in the text. And so as a rule of thumb, many people recommend writing at a level grade 10 or lower. Some people will even say do grade 8 or lower. And it's really important for me to just point out that sometimes we work with our scientists or our scientific content contributors. They feel like that means that they have to quote unquote dumb down the content, and that's absolutely not the case here. When we're saying writing at a grade 10 or lower or grade 8 or lower, we're basically saying you can still provide the same content or rigor of the information content, but we are just presenting the information in a more clear and concise format or style. Okay, so this is what we did with science-based help page. All right, and then we have assessed the needs, established the scope, review what we want to provide to our users. We actually put the solution or the tool or service together. We're finally ready to get feedback. And for this use case, I would like to share with you the National Biogeographic Map. The National Biogeographic Map is a place-based analysis tool that brings together all species and habitat mapping effort that has been done by USGS. And all the species and habitat mapping information need to be communicated to the users through a common interface. Again, as you are listening to the description of the National Biogeographic Map, I hope you can envision that it's a really complex set of data, not only in volume, but also in diversity that we're trying to bring to our users. So in terms of making sure that information is easily explored and easily explorable and understandable by our users is absolutely crucial. So testing with our users, making sure we meet their needs is a top priority. But for this area, I know some of you are familiar with usability testing or user study, and you know that that is a great way to engage the users directly. But for the National Biogeographic Map, we actually took a different route. I applied the heuristic evaluation technique or usability audit technique to this stage. And the reason for that are two, and there are two reasons for that, and these are the reasons that are common to other projects as well. So don't be disappointed if you don't always get to test users directly, even though that's really important. So the two reasons for using heuristic evaluations techniques, the two main reasons for using heuristic evaluation techniques are when you can't get to your users, you can't readily get to your users or they're not readily available to you. And that happens throughout the development cycle of a project. For example, right now, since everybody is working from home or many people are working from home, it could be hard to solicit users or get them to be focused enough to want to participate in such activity. Remote testing is definitely an option, but again, there can be many factors why soliciting user feedback directly from your target audience might not be ideal for whatever moment in time. And the other reason is that the development team might want to get an internal check before bothering the users. We want to know where we stand before we actually show the users the solution or product. So heuristic evaluation is not a great way to do that. So heuristic evaluation basically allows us to examine our designs by using usability principles. And there are many options. They're all really thoughtful and they're very helpful. And for each project, you would just have to decide which set of the principles that you want to apply and which set you're most comfortable with in making sure they're the most effective. In my case, I've been using the principles from Jacob Nielsen, and you can scan the 10 principles here as well. And you might notice that they're very much at the broad level or the conceptual level. And so in order to apply these principles, you might have to go through the process of identifying what it is that you're checking for. And that's exactly what we did for the National Biogeographic Map. For each one of these principles, we actually identified what characteristics that we would be interested in making sure it's consistent or it's applied throughout the map. Again, I apologize, you probably can't read. I know you can read the text as is, but for example, inconsistency and standards principle, we have identified whether or not the colors have been applied consistently throughout the product. And I use that as an example because that is very intuitive for people to understand, but at the same time, when it comes down to implementation, it could be really hard to make sure the same set of colors that you have selected for your product actually it gets applied throughout the product consistently. So it is something that definitely is worthy of reviewing and checking. And then for the National Biogeographic Map, in addition to defining the features or the characteristics that we're checking for under each one of these usability principles, and evaluating them using qualitative method, we have also coupled the evaluation process with severity rating so that I can report back quantitatively how bad or how well, I should say, put it positively, how well we are doing with these principles. And again, as you can see, hopefully you can see like on the slide that basically the first degree, the team can use the quantitative rating to prioritize which area that they want to work on first. But then once they get into the evaluation results, they can also use the qualitative observations to guide them in deciding what solutions that they want to implement or what improvements that they want to implement. All right, so the last part, organizing usability information, is not technically a phase that I see a lot of usability projects use. So basically we assess the needs, we establish a scope, we organize we structure our information, we create our content and features, we test, and a lot of times the project would only have enough time to launch and that would be it. But I really benefited from organizing my usability reports. So I would like to share my experience with you and hopefully you can make time for this as well. And again, I'll use HERA as an example. And for HERA, I actually put together a web-based portfolio for it. And you can see on the kind of the gray bar area, there are different areas that I worked on when I was evaluating HERA before we start the redesign process. For me, this is basically, sorry. Okay, hopefully, yes, the slide's back. Okay, so this is basically data management in me and combining with usability. And I love that about putting my usability planning together. In this web report, I basically talked about why I did what I did, what did I do, what techniques did I use, what are the results, and what am I going to do next? And of course, having this report, I'm also able to share the information with others. So I find that it is, even if you don't create a web page or website for each one of your projects for documenting the usability process, it is really helpful just to take a few moments of thinking through and writing some of these things down so that not only in the future when you're working on another project, you could come back and review your process and see if there are any processes that you can reuse. You can definitely help others by sharing the information. All right, so last part is the lessons learned on collaborating on usability and optimizing scientific data's usability. And this is definitely a combination of my experience with working with the ESIP community, plus working with specific projects, and now, of course, working with the USGS community as well. The first thing I would say for sure is to participate in activities and discussions whenever you can. When I was co-leading the ESIP cluster, usability cluster, I learned so much from the community when we're sharing different projects, what usability issues there are, and what solutions we can potentially put together for that project. And similarly with the CDI project, a CDI community as well. So the first step is definitely make some time to participate in community activities and discussions to see what other people are working on. And then when you're ready, try one. Adapt some of these recommendations in your own projects. You don't have to do everything in one go, like the steps that I showed you. You don't have to follow through all 5 steps to experience some of the to experience usability. So I would definitely say to take some of the recommendations and try some of them out. And of course, as you build your experience, share with other people to help cultivate the usability culture and user-centered approach. As I mentioned earlier, usability is very contextual, and oftentimes people don't really get the benefit until they've actually practiced. So it's definitely nice when you are able to work with the whole team and everybody is giving each other feedback about what they have experienced from the process. And finally, it's to iterate. Don't, even if you have a bad experience, don't give up. Try again. Every project is a little bit different, and even if you have a great experience, don't stop either. Keep building. Every time you do it, you'll learn something new, and that's how we can help building the overall usability culture and user-centered approach. And as the final slide, if you are excited, you're interested, have questions, I want to share with you some resources to get started, to put data to work. Definitely, I welcome you to join the USGS CDI Usability Collaboration Area. I would love to see you there and talk with you some more. And if you just want to learn something really quickly, if ESIP usability clusters usability framework is still available on the web or on our wiki. So check it out, take a look to see if that could help you with thinking about how you want to test your solutions. I also recently put together a presentation on choosing usability techniques. So I went into how the usability community recommends in terms of when to test, what to test, why you want to test, and all that great stuff. So you can also take a look at that presentation as well. And if nothing else, like I said, try out. Just pick something that you're interested in, try it out with a little part of your project and see how it goes. And hopefully you will learn that usability techniques is a great partner in helping you in supporting your community and putting your data to work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sophie. That was great. I forgot to mention at the beginning that I actually first met Sophie when we had a usability question, and she introduced me to all of this, and our system really benefited from working with her, and there were very specific improvements based on what Sophie and the ESIP usability cluster had to share. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to others to see if there are questions, and I actually already see a couple here in the chat box, Sophie. So from Dave Jones, he's wondering, how do you determine whether to develop a website that enables people to access data and visualize it versus providing services that can populate over other mapping systems? Do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm seeing that question. Dave, I'm hoping I am understanding your question correctly. So when you're saying developing a website, I think of that as a standalone service And then when you say versus provide service that can populate other mapping system, I'm thinking maybe more like a gateway or more like an API to direct people to somewhere else. So if I'm not understanding the two different types of solutions, please help me clarify. But in terms of building your own standalone service that you have to sustain, you have to maintain, versus kind of like you're a conduit or you're the connector to somebody else, it comes down to your users and your community, because, well, actually more than that. It actually comes down to three different things. It comes down to your users, your technical availability or the technology that's available to you, but also the overall governance. It's part of the overall product development discussion that I often would need to have with our teams in terms of deciding who should do what and why. And so in that discussion, we will need to determine if a particular solution is within the governance or within the mission of the organization that we are part of. And then if it is, then we can look into the solution formats. But if it's not, a lot of times the discussion has to stop there in terms of, if we don't have the authority or even the scope to create our own solution, then unfortunately, even if it's a great opportunity to support users, we might have to pass that up. But then if a solution is within our organization's mission and we are supported and we have the resources and all that good governance or missions level support, then we can talk about the different solutions that we can provide. And I think that's kind of related to your second question. Do I feel that USGS and other agencies need to do both? It's a great question, but I think I hate to use this phrase because it's kind of an inside joke with usability community. A lot of gurus or a lot of usability specialists, when they are asked the question of how do you do X, they often joke with it depends. So I'm not punting, but that is really a great question. That it really depends on what your organization is trying to achieve, whether or not a solution is part of its portfolio, what is the vision of that solution can fit within the overall service landscape that the organization has, and then it trickles down to the actual design. So I really love this question. I hope I'm able to explain it correctly, that overall, basically, we do need to understand our landscape before we can actually design the solution or the product. So I hope that helps. And then, yeah.
So Sophie, if you're finished answering that one, Jessica has a question about sharing the severity rating template that you showed.
Oh yeah, the severity rating is definitely a technique that is commonly known in the usability community. I would be happy to point people to resources, or if you want to know how I used it, I'm happy to talk about it more for sure.
Thank you. And others, feel free to keep adding questions in the chat if you have them, or we may be a small enough group that you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask. Maybe I will ask another question. Sophie, this was great. We learned so much. I guess for those who are limited on time or who are just getting started in this, is if there's one thing that I need to know about usability, what would it be, or where should I start? I think you started to show that in your last slide.
Yeah, and I kind of gave that answer to Dave as well, or to Dave's question as well. It's the concept of really trying to understand the ecosystem or the environment, because the usability solution or usability strategy is, I've been saying this many times through my presentation, so hopefully I don't sound like a broken record, but it truly is contextual. Even if you're in the same organization, and you are working on the same team, two different solutions or two different tools will have two different reasons for existing. And so even though you feel like there are a lot of overlaps, or you feel like you already know, uh, the one thing that I would say is always to review your context again, and making sure that you do um, you do go through the stages that we talked about, so that you really know the goals and how to make those goals successful. So yeah, so the one thing would be understand and get to know your context.
Thank you. I'll pause for a moment to see if others have
Megan.
questions. Go ahead, Dave.
Hi, hi, Sophie. This is Dave. It was a great presentation. I've really enjoyed it. I was just wondering, one of the things that we found with working with users is that we have involved, or actually working with other federal agencies that are developing products, have found that in involving the user of those products throughout the whole product development lifecycle, not only keeps you on the tracks when you're developing it, but when you're finished developing that product and you're ready to launch it, you have a built-in user base somewhat that really can be evangelicals for your project.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that is a perfect example of someone you're one of the perfect examples of someone's gone through the process and can really speak to the benefit of usability. I can sit here all day long and try to tell the world why usability is helpful, but you've experienced it. So, and you can speak to it exactly like you did. So thank you for sharing that. And that's absolutely correct. I love involving users for those reasons as well. And on top of that, I just love learning from their interactions or their feedback, and every step of the way is to help us be better, help our solutions, help our products be better, and help them to be more successful. And thank you for that comment.
Oh, you're welcome. Just a quick follow-up is that we work with NOAA quite a bit and look at their products, and we work also with emergency managers and decision makers. So putting NOAA products in front of emergency managers, whether they're in the utility industry or whether they're in DHS or FEMA, those folks don't hold back, right? They give you their immediate feeling for whether the product is good or bad or how it needs to change. And when you come back the next time, you better have an improvement, or they will cross you off their list.
Yes, absolutely. And I love the fact that you brought up the emergency managers, because that's also another great example of a persona that would be very different from like a typical team that's developing for, let's say, I'm just going to pick on, say, repositories, right? Very different perspective, very different attitude. So if we take on the lessons learned from building a repository, a digital repository, and then we're building a emergency support app or emergency support tool, that would not be a good match of attitude or environment. And so getting to know your users and being able to listen to them and see from their perspectives and support that accordingly is wonderful. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dave and Sophie. Really appreciate the lively discussion. I think we need to move on because it is just about the top of the next hour, but I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Sophie, so much for that great presentation. We will make that available for others to access. I wanted to remind you all that our next webinar will take place actually in August. We're skipping July because of all the summer meeting activities. It will be on Thursday, August 13th at 3 p.m. Eastern, and that'll be the ESIP Summer Meeting Highlights webinar, a fast-paced way to hear takeaways from many of the breakout sessions that will take place at the ESIP Summer Meeting, as well as the other activities there. Just a reminder to you all that this webinar was recorded and it will be posted to the ESIP YouTube channel shortly. And thank you all again for attending.
Thanks, Megan, and bye for now, and thanks everyone again.